is under siege. The nation is under siege.
Good evening, everybody. This is Divided We Stand. This is not the live Divided We Stand. You'll see that on Sunday evenings. This is the recorded version of Divided We Stand. You can find us on YouTube. That is Divided We Stand on YouTube. We ask that you subscribe. We are not a monetized channel, so you don't have to worry. We're not asking for anything. And then if you are a member of Facebook, you can find us on the Facebook group page. We have a quite popular Facebook group page called, appropriately enough, Divided We Stand. You do have to join us first, and we have to approve you. But if you ask, we'll let you in. So we look forward to that. Unlike our live sessions where you can chat within the chat box, we ask that you put your comments in the comment section so we can address those after the recorded version of the show. So right down here. And again, if you have not subscribed to the channel, please do so and click the bell. That way you'll get a notification when we do go live on Sunday evenings, or sometimes we go on ad hoc if we need to. We would appreciate that. So, all right. So I'd like to introduce my good friend, colleague, journalist, writer, just about everything. And that would be our David Price. Dave.
Yeah, Brian, I don't know if you heard it. You were breaking up, but that's just could just be a momentary lapse of reason.
I hope so.
Did I hear you say you hawked something? What did you hawk? What did you get rid of, and why?
Ad hoc, and you know what it is. So, right, basically, folks,
Yep.
when we have an important news event going on, sometimes we'll come online if we have to, if it's that important. So, for example, if, as you know, when Biden decided that he was not going to run again, we went on. So if anything big, really big happens, you can find us live at any one moment. That's a great possibility. But that's a rarity. It probably happens 2 or 3 times a year.
Well, of course, we are in a rarity that is a rarity of a rarity of a rarity right now. I'll really be interested. I won't be around to see it. But this election will be one, you know how they say it's one for the books. Well, it is one for the books. I can't remember anything like it. My thing is always history does not repeat itself, as does rhyme. So there's some rhymes here to 68 and some other things, but they're not really close rhymes this time because it's never happened before. Let's just look at some of the firsts. You've never had a candidate drop out as late as Joe Biden decided to do it. You've never had anybody like Donald Trump, who served in the presidency, got his ass kicked, said it didn't, tried to overthrow the government and come back. We've never seen anything like that.
Right.
We'll talk tonight, I'm sure, a little bit about the unfortunate or fortunate choice, depending which side you're on, of J.D. Vance as a vice principal. There's a Freudian slip. I spent too many years in the schools. And of course, one of the things we may throw around tonight, if you stick with us, just speculating on who will be Harris's VP. I think she said she was going to make the announcement Tuesday, I believe. So we're only a few days away from that. And of course, everybody has an opinion. And there's really only one opinion that matters, and that's hers. But you know what? The other thing that I think a lot of times, I know I sometimes even forget this, is that America doesn't operate in a vacuum. Once upon a time, if you think about it, Brian, we had the best defense system maybe in the world. We had 2 oceans, one on either side of us, and people couldn't get here. My wife Judy and I were talking about the other day. And she said, "Yeah." We said, "Well, the only country that's really ever attacked us in the modern age, of course, is Japan. Uh, but now, there are many ways to attack without even being here. Cyber attacks. You've got warheads,
Intercontinental ballistic missiles. They get here in 15 minutes.
So really, there's people think, oh, we're so far from Russia.
And there might be some saboteurs inside of the country too.
Well, of course, and Sarah Palin never said, although it was attributed to her, she never did say, I can see Russia from my front porch. That was a Saturday Night Live skit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You've always said, and you're a big fan of that, and I am too, of cultural history. I think may be more important than anything else, and it's getting more so for a number of reasons. But let's look outside that border, because what happens? Two things have happened this week, and I'd be interested to hear what you have to say about them. One is just today, the release of some hostages from, prisoners. They weren't hostages.
Well, we're going to call them hostages because essentially most of them were hostages for no good reason. Political prisoners.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yes, I would agree. Political prisoners with no solid basis to do that. So you had that. And then you had two leading Palestinian terrorists, if you will, were killed. And so all those things will come to play, in this election, because they will. All right. So which one do you want to start with, Brian? You got the choice.
Well, I definitely would like to start with the political prisoners, because I had posted something actually yesterday, because I do go to Telegram, Dave, because when you're talking about Eastern Europe, news actually does move pretty quickly. And I'm going to show you the post that I actually had, because I was on Telegram. See, I do like Telegram because it does seem to leak out some information from time to time. And let me just, I would like to get to the screen here for the web here. Okay. So you'll see here, this was something I posted over a day ago. And again, this was all in Russian when I saw it, but it came from Slovenia. But it says here, the exchange of the prisoners between the Russian Federation, the USA, Germany, Belarus will take place in the coming hours. The Slovenian TV channel N1 is reporting. So I knew that something was up, and that seemed very, very legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it turned out to be.
Absolutely turned out to be. And there's a pretty long list. I forget exactly how many people on our side. I think it was maybe 14. I have a list, and I should look on Divided We Stand, because I did post it. And I think there were 8 Russians, and they were actually prisoners because they were criminals. So
correct.
There was different reasons for each side. And this is why I think, and I'm kind of jumping ahead, why Biden said that Americans should just not travel to Russia anymore, because they use you as pawns. And there are still probably 20 to 30,000 Americans still in Russia right now.
Now, Brian, you are a Russian expert. You're fluent in Russian. You speak every week to groups of people in Russia. That you said 20 to 30,000 estimated.
I would say, this is what it's normally 20 to 30,000 are in.
Okay. And are most of them there for business?
Actually, no. Some of them will live there for a while. They'll do some business, some study. Usually, the ones who do go, Dave, are the risk takers. And I'm not in that group, although I've been in situations that one would think I was a risk taker, but it just kind of happened when you go there. In fact, I'm going to just go off of this screen here, Dave, because I'm going to keep looking for it. But I think the interesting thing about it was not just that we got the Wall Street Journal, Evan Gershkovich, or whatever his name was, back. But there was a major Russian dissident, Korza. He had been sitting in a prison. He was like Navalny. He's like the number 2 in line to Navalny. And they got him out. Now, I think what Ronnie said, I don't know that he doesn't want to leave Russia, but at least he's going to get on the plane. I think I saw him on the plane. And there are others. So this is a good thing. Now we're concerned about tonight in terms of divided we stand is this has now become a political situation post factum because now you're trying to take away the success that Biden had in this. This negotiation took place for over a year, and you had to get everybody on board, and you had to obviously get Putin on board, which is the most difficult thing. So you had to grease him and figure out what is important to him. There must have been something really important about the Russians who were released that they wanted them back.
Yeah. Do you have any speculation on that? I mean, Putin. I'm not an expert in Putin, but I think Putin does what's best for Putin, and sometimes Putin thinks he is Russia, so it is doing what's best for Russia. Sort of like when Trump stumbles and does something that's good for America, and Donald Trump, not often. But do you have any feeling?
Well, I can only speculate
why
he did that. He did it for Victor Bout. These are, this is going to sound pretty stupid, and I don't really know because I don't know if they had any information that they're actually going to be able to get from them. But Putin, according to his book, I haven't read his book, but I've read parts of it. It was about his youth. He was always involved with hooligans when he was young, and that type of mentality, that culture. We talk about culture today, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the gang culture. There's a certain thing where we've got your back. We're going to back you, and we won't forget you as long as you're with us. So I don't know if that's it, but I'd like to. I don't want to say I like to think it is, but I can't think of any good reason why he would want them other than that because. I don't know unless he figures that Victor Bout can cause more problems. I mean, they have a spotlight on him now. So I think this is just a matter of these are his old buddies, or maybe it's buddies of his buddies. I don't know.
It made sense. Like the prisoner exchanges that I remember were either war exchanges, say during Vietnam and those types of places, or were spies that were, sent back and forth. And it didn't seem at this point, I mean, while Russia claims that everybody that they arrest is a spy from America, that's not necessarily the case. And I don't even think it is the case. But so that makes
not
some
in this
sense.
case. I mean, certainly not in this case. These were political prisoners. Now you can certainly say that they were. Now that may, I think you're alluding to the fact that maybe the KG or the FSB, they want to take care of their own. They want them back. And so there's pressure.
But I was surprised, and especially there is, you said, and you're absolutely right. There's political ramifications, but I think it's interesting to me. The name really was put up again by Trump, and basically what he said with the Wall Street Journal is, it might, but I guarantee it. As soon as I'm president, he'll be returned, and we won't give him anything, just like Mexico will pay for the wall. Well. We know, or at least we've been led to believe, that Putin, makes sense, would prefer Trump over anybody else. I would want a buffoon, as my adversary. But so how do you factor Trump into this thing? I mean, was he just making this up? Was it just something he thought he wouldn't get caught, that they wouldn't exchange, or do you think he had some indication from Russia that they wouldn't? Or and again, let me just say, because I'm kind of I'm the political historical junkie here, that it's not uncommon. It's been at least 2 instances that we know of in American history, and probably many more, where an incoming president, or let me say this, either an incoming president or someone who wants to get the presidency, made secret arrangements. Nixon's people did it with Vietnam. There was a peace plan, and they said, just don't do it. We'll give you a much better kind of thing. And Vietnam said, great, we won't, we don't want Lyndon Johnson's successor. So they held off. And then with Reagan, there's pretty definitive proof now that people associated with him, or at least with the Republican Party, met and had with the Iranians and said, don't release the hostages. We'll give you a better deal.
Right. And that irritated the shit out of me.
But
don't forget to Russia though. The main enemies are the political enemies. That's again, you can get in a fight in your high school in Russia and maybe get a little bit of trouble, but you say anything against the government, that's what's going to get you to prison. So it's a completely different culture. So in a certain sense, these were dangerous people. And I have the ones who were released, by the way, on the screen now, the Russians who were released.
I see.
I don't know anything. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know much about these people.
Well,
obviously, our CIA would.
Would this apply, Brent? Is that the complete list as far as we know of Russians?
Yeah, that is the complete list. That they said 8.
And what was 20?
So
that means
actually there's 8. Yeah, okay.
So 8 there, and then
there's 14. I'm gonna count these out. Now some of these are just Russian dissidents. Like, okay, we know this is the role. Evan Gershkovich. Here's a guy. Somebody I mispronounced it. Karamorza. He's the one that says he would want to stay, but that's the last thing you want to do. Well, you know what happened to Navalny. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Paul Whelan, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I guess maybe there's more than 14. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's Provarov. 11, 12, 13, 14. I guess 15 maybe, or 16 maybe. So I'm gonna keep. I don't want to keep counting, but
math is not my strongest subject. But Russia gets back 8 and gives up 16. I don't know what we make of that. It's like a baseball trade or a basketball trade, right?
16. Yes, 16.
Yeah. So
most of these look like they're Russians too, except for Paul Whelan and Evan Gershkovich.
Right. That was my
there's Rico Krieger, Kevin. Okay, there are some other ones, but they did not give up. There's an American teacher there. They would not give that teacher up. So I guess they're waiting for something in the future. Something didn't happen. So,
but now what'll be interesting is and we've never been in this situation before. As I said, at the start of the program, everything about this is new. So Biden is the president when this occurred. He should get the credit.
Absolutely, and because first of all, he was negotiating for over a year. This was not something you just say. 2 weeks ago, they tried to start negotiating when they were able to release the basketball player.
Right.
And
Trump, with his nose already in it, is going to claim at some point he was instrumental in it.
Right. I mean, everything that Biden does or a Democrat does. And not only Trump, but Vance is the one who started this. So they're all going to start pushing the narrative, and this is this propaganda that you're constantly fighting.
Well, and what's interesting, or what's interesting to me is, it doesn't matter what Trump did. Biden is president, and just like he gets blamed for things, or the president gets blamed for things, he or hopefully soon she. Shouldn't get blamed for, like, price of food or gas. They don't really have a lot of control over that. They should get credit for this. But of course, now the interesting thing is, which you never, does that credit to Biden transfer to the vice president?
Vice president, right?
Because she, and I don't think he's going to say. I don't think Biden's a liar.
Well, I think it's in general. Don't you think, Dave, that it's in a certain sense, it doesn't really matter which of the two deserve credit because they're all kind of on the same team. Well, it's the idea that Democrats can get things done.
Well, that's what's important. Yeah, I agree, Brian. It's just, again, it's, and I go back to this echo of 68 in this election. Hubert Humphrey really got blamed for a lot of things that Johnson did that people didn't like, basically the war. And he didn't get a lot of credit for the things Johnson did. It wasn't transferable. But I think we're not going to see it this time because we'll maybe switch gears just for a moment here. And I don't think there's any other way to describe what's happened with Kamala Harris other than use the words astounding. It's astounding. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now, again, it's new, that kind of thing. But it'll be interesting because in some way she'll get tied into this, right? The same as the other incident this week, the attack. It looks like Israel did it. I mean, of the two, and one that was killed was, if I understand correctly, was the chief negotiator for Hamas. They're the bad guys. Let's make that clear.
No, they're and by the way, the one who was killed was the one who was instrumental in the 1983 bombing of the the American Marines in Lebanon.
Correct. Correct.
283 died, so that was a bad time.
But
I'm surprised we didn't go after him. That was a weird thing.
Maybe again. I'm certainly not
although you know what. But then again, we don't know for sure. I would think it was Israel, but maybe there was a wink and a nod. Maybe they said they didn't know. But either way, that guy was on two countries' list for sure. And that was United States and Israel, right?
And of course, what the initial fear was, as it always is in the Middle East, oh my God, it's World War III coming. And
right. I don't think. I know we're switching gears here. I think.
No.
But I said this before because a lot of people used to always ask me about the ramifications of the wars in the Middle East. This was back in the school, and I was so far right. I said Iran is not going to go to war with us. They will refuse. In fact, they'll even worse. It's probably even less likely that they go to war with Israel, because there's one thing that you cannot do in the Islamic world is you don't want to lose. So it's humiliating to lose, because again, your religion is the final religion, and it's the final say. And then part of the problem in the Middle East in general is, why are we living in such a way, and the rest of the world's living better than us, if we are the true, people. And as I say, but I'm saying, I think there's a certain reality with some, I'm sure, intelligent people in Iran. At least, I'm not saying good; it could be good or bad, but I don't see them going very far with this, because unless you're going to win something, you stand the chance of being humiliated, because they were humiliated as it was right there. I mean, their own people could see
they were in their home.
Stop anything.
Iran had offered not sanctuary but protection. It's like if I come to your home,
right, and it wasn't protected.
Bad things to happen. But I think, again, my ignorant in the terms of not really knowing enough to know, is that Middle East situation is volatile, but at the same time, there are some restraints, which you point out.
There's a pattern to these restraints that you talk about too.
Because I don't think, like you, I do not believe that the powers that be in Iran want a war with America. It can't be won. It can't be won. Okay. What I do find interesting, though, is the religious fanatics there have convinced the people, apparently, that the white devil and
because they're blaming us too. By the way, it's not just Israel; they're blaming the United States too.
Oh well, that's what I'm saying. The white devil, the United States, and yet, if you look at the United States. There are a lot of Iranians here. I live in, Washington, D.C., 3 metro stops from D.C. And in our apartment complex here, if you put the two towers together, in fact, that's probably the largest group now, which I find interesting, are students, graduate students from Arabian countries that are here. Certainly, they report back to their families, so they know what the standard, of living is here. And it's very similar.
Don't you think that Saudi Arabia would kind of want us to kick Iran's ass, though? Because
they're worried about
oil and water.
But and again, it's like there is no such. We talk about the Arab community. There really is no such thing. Each one of the countries, whether
first of all, if you even tell somebody from Iran that they're Arab, they'll get really pissed at you. They'll say we're Persian, because they are not Arabs.
No, I know that, but that whole
neither
thing
are the Turks.
There, is so. But what I wonder. What I find interesting is the true powers there, the imams and stuff, have convinced the people that our way is the good way, even though they can look and see that the other way may be the better way. Very similar to what Republican politicians have been able to, and rich Republicans.
Yeah, Trump is like the Ayatollah Khomeini. I'm talking about the old Khomeini back in in what's 78, or whatever, 79, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's a shame, because you look at places like Afghanistan, even though it was under the Soviet rule, and you look at Iran prior to the Shah, you see, I don't want to say a liberal society, but if you look at it, it wouldn't look much different than Europe, the way people dress.
Well, the way I mean, if the great, one of the great picture contrasts that photographers do when they're over there is here's Iran when it was westernized, and
Right.
here's Iran today.
It's
Pictures
a
of women.
shame. It's and this is
Well,
and ever since they took the hostages for 444 days, it was just we have never been able to deal with them. We've always had to have backdoor communications with them.
well,
But
it
I
is.
think after the last Israeli raid, I mean, it looks like not this one, the one before that, that Iran is basically has Russian weaponry. It's old and given a high tech war, they I think they know they can't. And I don't think any country can survive a war with the United States. Don't you think?
And
I mean, they might
well,
be able to
I,
hang in there, but unless you have the technology,
well,
you're not going to beat us.
you have a couple of things going. Not those oceans anymore, right? But
Right.
we
And
are
they still help, though.
a
By the way, that's
no, oh
still
yeah,
it's
oh
still
no,
yeah,
no, of course,
right.
and we are a huge country. Okay, just with miles and miles and miles. I mean, Texas is bigger than what, 16 European
Any
countries.
right.
You know, so we have that. Um, Hopefully, if I were to worry about something, and this would be my thought, I would worry about some kind of dirty bomb.
That yeah, well, that's again, that's exactly what they would do. They know they can't fight that type of war, so they start doing these. We'll just blow up a synagogue, or we're going to just blow up a building like 9/11, that kind of thing.
Right.
And if they do that, there'll be, and that's I think would be the one worry I would have, because if they did something like that within the next 4 months, where
Right.
I don't know where they would do it, because we had the problem with, I don't know, it was before 9/11. It was with, I don't know, it was not the Guggenheim Museum or whatever it was they did for what was the one of the buildings in New York that they
When
exploded a
it,
bomb in the basement, and it
yeah,
didn't. But
is
it doesn't
it,
matter. My point is that because we can't remember everything on this, but the point is, and I think you'll agree with me, if they do that in the next 4 months to us in that kind of way, I'm not saying it's going to happen. That would be a big thing that I think that Kamala Harris would have to really take care of, and she'd have to be a hawk, because
no,
the
you can't,
anger after 9/11, I mean, that would have brought a Trump
well,
on it, no matter what.
well, speaking of 9/11, and we just were, uh, my wife and I, Judy and I, were in the Pentagon City Fashion Center, which is their mall. It's next community to us. And of course, Arlington which is my county, is where the Pentagon is located. We're, what did I say it was? 1.5 miles from the Pentagon, I think, something like that. Under 2 miles, I know. And the mall is got an artist, and he put together an exhibit that will run until the end of September on 9/11 attack on the Pentagon. And it's been a lot of years, right? Sometimes it seems like it's only
Right.
yesterday, but it's been a while, right? And yet those pictures brought back all that horror. Um, and
And
I
you
wasn't
remember at
there.
work how angry some people were
And
that
and
day.
well, and you think about it. I mean, on one hand, it was meticulously planned. On one hand, on the other hand, things went wrong as they always do in the plan.
Right.
Uh, for one thing that we know, or almost 100% certain went wrong, that the plane going to the Pentagon was not targeted for the Pentagon.
Right. It was
That,
at the
that
Capitol, correct?
well, they're not sure, Capitol or White House, right?
Hmm.
But the reason that that's pretty safe to say is there was a side to the Pentagon where there was construction and nobody was there, and that's the side the plane hit. So
Right.
either it was really pure piloting at the last minute, you know, or whatever. But when you go there to the Pentagon, of course they have two memorials, one inside the Pentagon, and then the main was outside, and it's just a place that you just look and you say, oh my God. One of the things that Judy and I both noticed that today, I guess I'd never really looked at the immediate aftermath of the attack. Uh, and it didn't blow up, if you will, a big area. I mean, you'd think it would have been more damage than it was. There was enough damage. I'm not, but I mean, the
Right.
damage to the
Well, we
building.
saw what happened to the trade centers, and
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
pretty
So the
damn.
two,
But it was still
I
an
mean, so
attack. You're talking about, you talk about the fact that oceans. In this case, it didn't work because that was an attack on our country.
oh, absolutely,
I remember
absolutely.
telling Jim Crilly, because I remember when Doug Rainier told me that it seemed to be a small plane. I was like, he didn't really know at that moment. Then
Well,
I
none of us
saw it.
did.
Then I went up to Jim Crilly and I said, a plane just went into the World Trade Center, I said, "This is going to be like Pearl Harbor." And he looked at me at first like he didn't doubt me. He just looked at me like, "What?" You know, like it was just kind of like he was in amazement that
Well,
I said that. But I knew, I mean, it wasn't difficult to figure out if they did that because the first thing we all thought about was this has got to be some type of Muslim terrorist. That's the first thing, and it was. But if you remember the immediate reaction to these teachers, I mean, the blood was boiling that day. It was
well, of
really,
course, of
really bad.
course.
But that's the
Um,
kind of thing that if it happens now, though, there's going to be no she's going to have to just react to this in the way that.
but you know what? You know what will be interesting this time because the name of our show says it: "Divided we stand." Uh, I don't have scientific or historical proof, but I think the country today is more divided than it was at the time of the Civil War, by numbers, by sheer numbers. We have more
Right, because
population.
a lot of people just kind of laid back and just did
You
their
know, and
thing.
so in the Civil War, basically, if you look at it, the North was mostly stuck by uh, recently arriving Irish and Germans.
Right, right.
And I mean, they were Americans; they were here. And then, of course, the Southerners, they made a great slip by not ordering their slaves to fight because
Mhm.
they didn't have enough people, and they did a lot of things. But now, I mean, there's
Their
more
own
people.
racism killed themselves in a certain
Well, it
sense.
was
Yeah.
kind of in a way that was very just and fitting, right? Almost karmic in
Right,
nature.
right, right.
But
Absolutely.
but not to belabor these two, but I think again, we always have to be constantly aware of these things that happen in other places do affect us. Uh, but by the same token, I think I would urge people to look at the American side, and who I'm speaking to directly is anyone who is um, pro-Palestinian and anti-American. That's fine, okay, if you want to be that, that's your decision. But again, with self-preservation, I would suggest that you really need a Democrat in office, not Donald Trump. I mean,
Absolutely, and
I mean,
that's where the
from
connection is there between us all. We need to have a
from
Democrat.
from from the point of I don't think, well, I know Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, unless there was something almost inconceivable, are not going to put up concentration camps. Donald Trump has already said first day he begins
Yeah, and you and I would be the first one to
co-
visit them because
collectively.
people like us would be paying the price.
Yeah. Well,
Because in
and of
Russia,
course,
we are the kind of people that would be what you and I are doing right now is
uh,
what Russia goes after.
but it would be interesting to see. I'm not here. There seems to be so much hatred directed to so many groups. Liberals might not be first. They'd be in the mix, don't get me wrong. But it might be Mexicans first and then followed by who knows what.
I
And
think it's
then,
political now, Dave. I think that
oh,
it's
well, it is,
their
but
hands
it,
to them the hands forced. They think that. I mean, I saw an old college friend who's no longer a friend of mine. I wouldn't even
right.
accept. And I'm looking on his Facebook page, and he's got all kinds of shit about
Oh, no.
the
Well, that's,
coming
well,
Civil
that's,
War and
well, I mean, the Project 2025, and anybody who's naive to think two things. One is Trump didn't know anything about it. That was a complete lie. And number two, that he saw there were some things in there that weren't good. First of all, that is the Republican plan. That
right.
plan comes in whether it's Trump or somebody else. It doesn't matter. Uh, it it falls into what if you can even see Trump speak in there, if you will. The things that he wants. So that is the plan. Um, and a big thing in there is something that I think is one of the most un-American things of all. It certainly tarnishes FDR's reputation because concentration camps have a connotation now, deserved so, from the barbarism and horribleness of the Nazi camps. But a concentration camp is simply you put a group of people in there. That's what it
Right.
is. You concentrate, you isolate, you take from their homes, and then anything can happen. So people say, "Oh, it won't be like." No, it won't be like the Nazi camps. No, it won't. But it'll be a camp, and then from then on, who knows what will happen. A little bit more positive news, I guess we could say. As I said before, I think Vice President Harris it's now her election to lose. I really believe that. This is not
Seems to
false.
be pulling ahead in these swing states, Dave.
Well, she is, and I think there's a reason for that. I think there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, we forget how disliked Donald Trump is. Okay, he's really not popular. He's not. He is popular with two bases: his cult of Trump, right? Well, three really: evangelical Christians, the cult of Trump, and sometimes they're intermingled. And then third are Republicans who have sold their soul to say he's our guy. We're going to go with him, and we're going to win. There was a really good column. I'll probably talk a little bit about it on more on Sunday's show by a Republican who just said, "This is horrible. There's no more Republican Party. Where does a conservative turn?" And I don't feel. I mean, I'm not a conservative, so I'm not real
Right.
worried about that. But I do understand that. I mean, think about this. Who does Mitt Romney, who I think is a genuinely decent human being, maybe the Republican equivalent of Joe Biden, right? In certain ways, old school, old time.
It's a good analogy.
So what happens is he doesn't have a party right now. He can't be a Democrat. Okay, he can cast a protest vote against Trump if he chooses to, but you don't even have to look that far. Look at the Cheney family.
Right.
Liz. Again, let's not make a superhero out of her. What she did is very courageous, but you still have to remember, if she were in Congress right now, she'd still have the most conservative voting record of anybody there. She had it when she left. You've got. So it really is now the party of Donald Trump, and Donald Trump doesn't want anybody to disagree with him. They don't allow anyone to disagree with him. So if you do, where do you turn? I would like to urge them, if anybody is in that category, please vote against Donald Trump. I mean, I understand. Look, it's just simple to me. If Donald Trump wins, democracy dies. It's that simple. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
You're letting the dogs in.
It's
the wrong dogs.
not over, because we'll fight and things will happen, but democracy will die and
Right.
it'll have to be resurrected. So you're not voting forever if you're a Republican. You're not voting forever for democratic values.
Right.
What you're saying is, I fear what Donald Trump will do to the country more than we can survive 4 years of.
You would think that would be the logic of that particular type of Republican. Is that enough?
Well, I think it is for some. Especially as this race goes on. I mean, Trump only gets worse. Trump can't get better. Okay, he was horrible 30, 40 years ago, and he's had all this time to get more horrible. And so let's bring it up. What's in the news again? We'll probably deal more with it on Sunday. But just basically, I just sat there and watched the whatever you call it with Trump and at the Black Journalists Conference.
Right.
Now, again, we start with that was a very divided decision. I mean, really close. Many of the journalists in that group did not want Donald Trump there. And I understand their reasoning. They said two things would happen. It looked like you were giving Donald Trump a forum for his ideals, and no matter what happened, he would make it a forum, right?
Right.
But I disagree with that. I think you need to put Donald Trump in front of the people in situations that he doesn't control.
Right.
And that indeed,
and put him under stress too, which is a good thing.
and that's
Make
exactly
his body go through stress.
I have a new American journalistic hero. She is a Black woman. She's young, and she's a reporter for ABC News, one of their political reporters, and she held Trump to the fire and did it in a very appropriate manner. Never raised her voice, just kept coming with the question, and he goes, so disrespectful.
Yeah.
And I want to say, for all the words that he said, black jobs, Kamala Harris suddenly turned black. I mean, we could go on forever about it. You know what I think is the worst thing? You know what I think is the worst thing he did? And it's been mentioned a little bit, but I want some psychological people or psychiatrists to weigh in on this. Did you notice that he was, where he was sitting, his water was to the right, okay? He turned to the left and took that water and tightened the cap. Did you see that?
I didn't see that.
It's
I
there.
didn't watch all of it, Dave. I'm going to be
Now,
honest with
who?
you. I
I
did
know, I
watch some of
understand
the
that.
questions.
But what I want everybody to understand is who in the fuck would take somebody else's water and tighten the cap? What is that
Mhm.
about? Now, one of two things: either that was deliberate, and that makes him a bigger piece of shit than I even thought he
I
could
think it's
be.
just nervous energy. He's just grabbing
And there,
anything.
and there you are. So either way, that's being effective, is what I'm saying. It's what I'm saying. He certainly didn't win a vote there. I don't believe, because I think everybody who's going to vote for Donald Trump already knows they're going to vote for Donald Trump. I don't think he'll get one more vote to, on election night than he got today. I think at this point, uh, the momentum has shifted. Some people say, "Oh my God, only 107 days," which it started. Now we're down 98 or something like that. Well, sometimes it's a concentrated effort. The way I look at politics now is a little different than I used to. I think the longer the campaign goes, the more chance you have of messing up, right? Or somebody messing you up that doesn't. And that
Right.
leads me into the other thing I want to talk briefly about tonight. Again, we'll talk more on Sunday.
News cycles, you hit the wrong day and the whole thing changes.
Now, Trump chose J.D. Vance. We don't know, I can't get inside Trump's mind, of what he did. But it appears from what I've read and what I've learned that really there were two factions backing Vance over others. One was his two sons, Donald Jr. and Eric. And that really, and I would say this so I could debate them. That's like really seriously, that's like listening to Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
I mean, yeah, you don't take courses from your parents. You know what I mean?
you know,
That's so you certainly wouldn't take it from your kids. It just
no,
doesn't work that
and
way.
the idea of it is, if Donald Jr. is not doing cocaine, that would surprise me. Now, as a recovering drug addict and alcoholic, I'm not saying he's one of those. What I'm saying
It
is,
certainly
I
looks
do know.
like it when you get a
Well,
freeze
well,
frame of him.
the thing is, he does something's going on because he does have the characteristics of somebody on a
So
pretty
he's
much.
sweating and it seems like he's on speeders of some sort.
Well,
He's-
that's what I'm saying. And I'm sorry, there's Eric is dumber maybe than Beavis and Butthead combined. He just
he
doesn't.
looks dumb. I mean, you don't like to say
Yeah,
things like that, but he
no,
does look
I know,
dumb.
but I'm just saying. So that was the family side, and then the other person involved in this is Peter Thiel, and Peter Thiel is actually what the Republicans claim George Soros is, but Peter's the real deal. He gets involved. He's there. He's not the Koch brothers. He's the antithesis to the Koch brothers. He's the new, like the Koch brothers, as evil as they are, and trust me, they are very, very evil, as was their father. Their evil was put into Reagan and people who came from that vent. The Bushes, all that kind of thing. Peter Thiel saw immediately the opportunity and started backing people that would support Trump. Now J.D. Vance tries to come across as pulled himself up by his bootstraps. That whole thing is not true, and definitely not true. Once he gets into adulthood, he went to Yale. Just shows you can go to Yale and still be a doofus, but you don't get into Yale unless you have something going for you.
Right.
I mean that part's true. And when he came out, he was out in the financial world and the tech world, and Peter Thiel was his mentor, among others, and financed him.
Okay.
So,
No.
so I'm assuming, the idea is Peter, has a lot of money. He's ready to support Trump, and I don't know if it was a sit down, but obviously, I think I'm sure Mr. Thiel would love to have the vice president in his pocket, and he may well have that. And I don't mean that as corrupt. I just mean that as if somebody gives you millions of dollars of support, you owe them something. I mean, you do. Like if you bought my lunch,
Yes, it's
I'd owe you a lunch back. I mean, that's just the way it is. So, but now there seems to be a lot of grumblings and rightful grumblings because I don't know of any vice presidential candidate like this who's ever actually come out and the week after is into negative numbers. That's
right.
never happened.
It's amazing.
Never.
It just
Never. And everything now, I don't know Mr. Vance. What I know about him, I don't like.
it's not even his real name.
Now, But I mean, just think about this. Uh, but here's the thing, and I think we all have to look at it this way. We should, we can laugh and chortle at what's going on with Vance. We can say he deserves it, but that shows how powerful. We're back to the theme we began with, culture, and culture now is driven by social media, and social media is driven by 6 or 7 websites there. Among them, Facebook, which is probably the weakest of the sites now. You've
Right.
got Trump's Truth Social. You've got the social media site previously known as Twitter, Elon Musk, who's a piece of shit too. You've got
Instagram, TikTok.
and TikTok is the big one for young people.
Right.
I'm gonna on Sunday show.
Otherwise, I wouldn't even think of TikTok, but because it has to do with young
No.
people, that has to be respected.
No, that's going to help. I mean, whoever they chose, and they've chosen Kamala, that is a youth vote. That's where it's going to go. That's where it's going to go. So,
And don't you
let's
think
look at-
that's going to be something that's going to make Trump and the Republican Party
Oh,
panic and say,
well,
Don, you
well-
got to get another guy in because we will lose. You may
Well,
be
I-
embarrassed by changing it up, but you've got to change it or you're going, and then
there'll
you're
certainly
in
be
trouble.
there'll certainly be pressure on him. What you don't know, and we don't know, is does Trump? We know that Trump values loyalty above everything else, and Vance is nothing if not loyal. He's been kissing that ass for a
Right.
couple years now, but he is completely inexperienced. He will be the most inexperienced vice president in the history of America. Where do you become it?
And Trump is older, and if something happened to Trump, not that we,
And yeah, and
wishing it,
so
but we would.
But so let's look at what's happened to him on social media, though. One person, don't know who that person is, be interested to ever trace it down, sitting somewhere, came up with the idea, I don't like J.D. Vance. That's what happened, right? And I'm going to mess with him. And they put out, it had to come from one person, unless it was a group. I mean, unless they were all sitting around doing it, but I don't think so. And he put out a story that J.D. Vance had sex with a sofa.
Couch.
Now, I don't think J.D. Vance had sex with a sofa. I don't. I could be wrong, but I don't believe that. But many people believe it, and those that don't say, well, maybe he didn't, but I could see him doing that. Or they say, he's sleazy, or they just think it's funny.
Or
And
they have to spend time defending the idea that he didn't do it. It just-
Right.
It
Well, that
takes
that
away
also,
from everything.
That also gets to something very important. Associated Press ran a detailed story explaining why that wasn't true. Go look for that story now. You won't find it. Do you know why? It caused more, even though it was refuting it,
Right.
it bursted even more.
Because all they can
So-
think of is sex and couch. And
Sex and couch.
And
That's
sex
it.
it penetrates everybody's
And
mind.
there are some
and now you're
really
connecting it.
there really are some funny memes, hilarious memes out there on that. But again, I think we should feel just a little bit uneasy about those because that can be our guy or our girl next, right? Or us. Then you've got, but that would be bad enough. But then you're followed up, and I still can't trace this one down about he on his website he was searching for dolphin porn. Now I didn't even know there was such a thing as dolphin porn. To me, that sounds completely made up. But it's out there. And if you notice, a lot of the memes that are movable or have animation in them, dolphins are swimming around him, and he's looking at Flipper. My God, with.
But
these-
Dave, I mean, as much as it's kind of revolting and stupid, they kind of deserve it because all the crap they
Oh,
make
I'm
from
not.
Fox.
I'm not.
Let
I'm not
it happen.
saying-
Let them
no.
deal with trying to defend the idea.
I don't have a minute of sympathy for them. What I'm saying over and above the fray is, before we get too elated about it, it can be used against somebody else on the other side. Because what
Right.
you're seeing is the sheer power of it. Either side has it.
That's
But
why you got to
then-
have the vice presidential candidate really vetted, and she's going to make the right decision.
Exactly. And that Kamala's vetted because she's been there. It's not
Right.
even about. It's not even about having the experience, although that's great. But it's more about she is what she says she is. And,
But they see the Republicans' route, Dave, is even if they know they don't have anything on her, they'll just make shit up.
well, but I think
but that's better
again-
than the alternative when they
Well,
actually do find something.
Right. But then the one that's he does some other things. He's had 3 name changes.
Right. It's bizarre.
Now, do you know anybody who's had 3 name changes? I mean, not counting marriage. I'm talking about, but I don't know
No,
anyone.
absolutely not.
I know,
It's
I know,
just.
I know a lot of people who've legally changed their name,
I mean, was
but
it maybe it was who's the rapper that did that kind of
oh well,
Diddy?
that's
Yeah. And
yeah,
that's just
P
like every
Diddy,
day there's a new
P
name.
yeah, P Diddy, P Duty, P whatever.
Right, right.
But that's entertainment. I'm talking about this now. But in the course of this, again, it comes out that apparently, and I have to couch it in those terms because I don't even believe it necessarily read it, but it's out there that at one point Vance had some questions of his own sexuality. Now, there's nothing
Right.
wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
No.
If you're choosing, and there are a lot of people who are conflicted
But there's got to be a
at
but
times.
in there because you know what is
Well,
revolving around that.
what happens is when that crosses a line is when you attack others, for doing what you did.
Well,
But
well, it was apparently what he had gone through counseling from a minister when he thought
correct.
he was
Who,
perhaps.
who God talked him back, yeah, which could happen. Okay, but what I find interesting, a guy came out. Now again, we don't know. We know the guy. We've seen the video. We don't know the truth of it.
Right.
He says that yes, at a point I met or came in contact with Mr. Vance on a one of the dating sites, one of the dating apps, and we went out, and I thought he was just strange, and I got to tell you, he had a sock fetish. Now, think about this. You've got a guy now who's been accused of having sex with a couch with a glove on. Okay, we got to add that to the story. Looking up dolphin porn with the idea that over all of this, he went out on a gay date. Again, nothing wrong with that, but the date says he had a sock fetish. Now, I mean, I don't know what a sock fetish is. I have an idea, but I've never. I mean, I know a lot of people use their socks when they masturbate. That's been a long-standing case with men. But I
Unless
don't.
he likes to smell socks, like he's like
Well, that's what I mean. A fetish is
Uncle
something that,
Eddie or whatever the hell that guy's name was.
there are people, and again, ladies and gentlemen, this show tries to deal in a realistic manner with sex. There are men and some women too who like to get used panties. I mean, there's all kinds of things. That's a fetish, right? It's not
Right.
that anything's necessarily even wrong with it. It's just fetish, So I don't know what that means. But how the hell do you recover from that? I don't know that you can. I don't think you can in 100 days. I don't think you can.
Mhm.
And it's now open season. And again, Brian, I agree with you. It's been open season before, but I don't think it's going to be the same now because I think Ms. Harris is of a different time than Joe Biden. I will never speak ill of Joe Biden because he beat Donald Trump. He saved democracy once. I will never speak ill of Joe Biden because he did the right thing for him, his family, and his country.
Right.
He turned it over because he could have turned it over with no endorsement, or just he could have been bitter. And I don't care whether he was forced out or not. That's immaterial. But Kamala is of a different nature. She's a prosecutor. She's a woman. She's a black woman. She's a black woman who also has Asian Indian blood in her. She went to Howard University. She was a prosecutor. Did I mention she was a prosecutor? Which sets up one of the great contrasts of all time, and you're seeing it. Lincoln Project, I posted it. If anybody looks for it, you need to see this. They make tremendous ads. This might be the most effective. And one of the lines is, it's your choice. You can have the prosecutor or you can have the felon. And notice what she's saying. We said earlier, Trump's talking trash. Well, she's not street, but she knows street.
Well, don't you think in general, Dave, that just we should keep it simple with prosecutor versus the felon because they're going to say that we're communists and they're whatever the hell they are.
But what's interesting about that is true, right? Whether it should affect or not, she is a former prosecutor. He is a convicted felon. Nobody can deny the truth of that. And if they do, they're misled or lying or misguided. Then she says, if you have something to say to my face, or if you have something to say about me, say it to my face. That was a cool line, a very cool line. And what she's been able to do so far very well, I think, is kind of take that Michelle Obama high road when it's necessary. But when she sees it's not, she'll punch the bully right in the face.
Right, and that's
so
what has to be done.
So I think, it'll be interesting. We'll be back on Sunday. And again, if you're just seeing this for the first time, please do turn in Sunday. The reason that I like Sunday so much is it's not like you saw tonight. Okay, Brian and I talking, and that's fine, and we need to do this, and this is what we're doing. This is one of the ways I'm trying to help America by just pointing out the faults in Trump and the Republican Party and the good things about now candidate Harris and the Democratic Party. But what I like about the Sunday show is, as you mentioned, Brian, earlier, people can send in comments and we can respond right away to them. We can, and they can respond to each other.
More ownership.
So it's a much more interactive show. What it does show, I think, us doing this midweek show, we just.
By the way, I think that's why the Facebook page is so popular with people, because there is that interaction, and it's a safety too. But it's that interaction.
Well, that's and see that I might talk a little bit about that on Sunday, but right now, I sometimes lose sight of that. And that's my shortcoming of me. I don't really care about, about online safety. But I forget how many people do. They get affected when they're attacked. They want a place to come. They have a right to have that place. We provide it. Once in a while, a troll will get in. We get rid of them very quickly. But anyway, as my daddy always used to say, my Texan daddy, Lord willing, the creek don't rise. I'll be here. Brian will be here. And we hope you'll be here next Sunday.
Right. All right, we're going to finish from there, Dave, and I will just mention something after I sign off right here, so you just hold on for a second. Thanks, everybody.